It's hard to describe what makes a story one of my favorites, but I'll try and put it into words anyway. My favorite stories give me a feeling. Not one specific feeling, no, but a lingering one. A sort of density that builds in my heart. One that impacts my mood and devours my thoughts hours, even days after I've turned the last page, after I've put down the controller, after the credits have rolled. Manifold Garden made me feel like the back of my head had been blown out, my endless musings tumbling out and giving rise to a tranquil, blissful emptiness. Xenoblade Chronicles 2 left me with an overwhelming sense of relief and joy, happy that the journey was over, happy for the characters and the life that lay ahead for them. Devilman Crybaby left me stunned, contemplative, melancholic, thoughtful. At times it almost made me cry, made me furious, desperate for the answer of so many whys. So, with that in mind, as the credits of Evangelion 3.0 plus 1.0 Thrice Upon a Time rolled, what feeling was I left with? What feeling do I take to bed with me? What feeling do I have now as I write this script? I'm not too sure. Why don't we keep going? Maybe I'll find the words along the way. Since I plan on making a video about my thoughts on the Eva series as a whole sometime in the future, I won't go into too much detail about that right now. Be sure to like, sub, and ring the bell if you enjoy this video and want to catch that one when it comes out, but to make things very brief, Evangelion has always struck me as a messy, at times incoherent story, while also being magnificently artful, touching, and personal at the same time. I think Shinji is an especially genius deconstruction of the generic self-insert archetype that even today is being beaten and violated like the dead horse it is. End of Evangelion in particular ranks as one of my favourite anime just as a standalone film, acting as a great, angry summation of the series' themes and concepts that rages against the very people who forced it into existence in the first place. I'd wanted to watch Rebuild soon after, but at the time I finished the show, the final film was about a year or two away, so I figured I'd wait for the last one to come out, then binge the lot, which I did. And though I definitely had my problems, which again I'll get into detail with in a future video, I thoroughly enjoyed my time watching them. However, it is the final film, the infamously late Thrice Upon a Time, that gave me by far the most to think about, specifically in regards to its theme of growing up. To do that though, we'll have to touch a bit on the film's predecessor, 3.33, You Cannot Redo, particularly Shinji's character arc in it. After two films of generally being more confident and self-assured, this one knocks him right back to the child we knew him as. After learning the consequences of the third impact he unintentionally caused, he at first retreats, repeating the old line of, "I don't want to get in the Eva," instead choosing to run and hide away in his room. He's pulled out by Kaoru though, who reassures him that they can reverse the effects of the third impact, bringing the world back to its original state. Shinji latches on to this idea, becoming obsessed over it, even as Asuka, Mari, and even Kaoru realize that his actions will only bring about further chaos. Nonetheless, he pledges himself to the idea that only bringing back what is already gone will make this right, will allow his mistakes to wash away. It does not.
I wish
After disaster is just barely averted, Shinji once again retreats from the world, becoming damn near catatonic. If Asuka hadn't dragged him out of his entry plug, I genuinely think there's a good chance he would have just starved to death in there. Either way, he doesn't say a word as Asuka leads him and a Rei clone to Village 3, though after they arrive there, he still doesn't say a word. Compared to his old friends, Toji, Kensuke, and Ikari, now all grown adults with children and responsibilities, Shinji's refusal to interact comes across as especially childish. While Rei interacts with the people around her, finding not only joy, but herself in the simple pleasures she was denied, Shinji hides away in a corner, and when that sanctity is forcefully violated, he seeks further isolation, retreating from the world and the problems contained within. I've alluded to this in prior videos, but I, like many people, have related to Shinji at times, as is the intent behind his character. Even so, never before have I seen myself reflected so clearly in a fictional character like Shinji in this moment. When the weight of expectations become too much, when your mistakes claw at your back and leave scars, when you're convinced that people could only look at you through a thick veneer of disappointment, the idea that it's easy to just run away from it all becomes so very intoxicating. It becomes far, far too easy to believe that everything is just better this way. That you're better this way. You aren't. It's soul-crushing. In retrospect, it's it's so stupid. The idea that anyone would willingly sequester themselves in their own misery. But I suppose that's what we do when we're children. We believe in stupid things, like the fact that someone hates us when they so very clearly don't. It takes a truly innocent, unquestionably sincere, repeated display of affection from Rei for Shinji to realize what he's been blind to. Wrapped up in his own guilt, his own selfish suffering, he failed to realize that others were suffering just as much, if not more so than him, both from the world they found themselves in and the choices and the mistakes they themselves made. But instead of running away, or drowning in self-pity, or trying to bring things back exactly how they were, like, well, idiot Shinji, they accepted what happened and did their best to try and move on. They grew past their mistakes. They grew up. And by taking the time to actually connect with the people around him, see how they live alongside them, Shinji grows up too. This notion that growing up means to accept yourself, mistakes included, and move forward, leaving the past in favor of the future, is one that is perfectly epitomized with Gendo Akari. With his own sense of crippling self-hatred, Gendo was unable to move past the death of his wife, the first person to bring warmth to his cold world. Afraid to connect with anyone else, even his own son, fearing the damage he would do and the damage he would be done, he sought to overcome his self-imposed boundaries with his own version of human instrumentality, finally receiving the human connection he was missing, and finally reuniting with the love of his life once again. In a sense, Gendo is just as much a child as Shinji was, unable to understand why or accept that what he loved is gone, unable to accept himself as he is now. And as the adult in the situation, Shinji, instead of just fighting his father in a giant, absurd, metaphysical robot brawl, must sit him down and do the one thing that he spent the last 20 or so years of this insane, seemingly perpetual franchise too afraid to do. Connect. By reaching out to his father in the same way that his friends did him, by talking to him and understanding his feelings, making his own feelings understood in turn. This is probably as good a time as any to bring up Mari and what I think her place in the story is. As the only main character who seems to be having the slightest bit of fun in this series, especially in the last two films, I think Mari as a character really embodies this notion of what growing up means. Not necessarily in a sense of maturity or how one conducts themselves, but in how she handles tragedy, failure, and loss. Yes, she gets angry, frustrated, even regretful at times, but unlike Shinji or Gendo or Asuka, she doesn't let it weigh her down or consume her thoughts. She just shrugs it off and keeps going moment to moment. I understand why some might not like the static nature of her character, especially compared to some of the most dynamic characters in mainstream anime, but I feel like that just isn't the role she's meant to serve. As a brand new, fresh character to rebuild, she's meant to serve as an example that the other characters, stuck in an endless, self-destructive loop, are meant to aim for. It's why she's the one that rescues Shinji after he's made peace with everyone from his past. It's why she's the one who stays with him in the new world, running off with him to explore their new freedom. She represents that letting go of the past and moving on to something new. Growing up. So, when the credits of Evangelion 3.0 plus 1.0 Thrice Upon a Time rolled, what feeling was I left with? What feeling did I take to bed with me? What feeling did I have as I wrote this script? It was anticipation. Anticipation of a future where the past doesn't block out the sun, but serves as the foundation to reach it. Anticipation for the simple moments of living that await. Anticipation for the connections that are there to build. Anticipation for a brand new world, free from any lingering regrets. Anticipation for my own new beginning. My own Neon Genesis. If you enjoyed this video, then be sure to like, comment, and ring the bell when you subscribe. Also, be sure to sub to my Patreon if you want access to the director's commentary that'll be going up in a few days. With that being said, thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.